What's up, everyone? It's Matt Diazable coming at you with a new album review. Today, I am checking out the band Hateforce with their newest album, Systems of Terror. This band, Hateforce, doesn't really have too much information about them, but what I can tell you is they are a death metal band based out of Chicago, featuring members from Harm's Way, Weekend Nachos, and Like Rats. And like it's pretty much a very side project for these guys because they don't really tour. I think they might play a show here and there, but yeah, they're just making like death metal because like the other bands they play in are more hardcore or industrial or more grindcore, while this is just straight up death metal. Like if you're into death metal, you're going to like this album because yeah, they're not trying to do anything too like glitzy or glamorous and trying to do crazy things. They're just making heavy death metal songs with this record. So let's check this album out. The terrorizing band Hateforce is bringing some sludgy, doomy metal that mixes things up at times, but unfortunately, I think they fall victim to their own style sometimes with this record. This band is able to incorporate a lot of their influences with the music they're making here. You can get some thrashy metal style playing with the song Descending Down. Then you get some more hardcore influenced songs on like Total Violence. And then you get some pure death metal with the song Hateful Creator. And I like that they mix things up throughout this album and have some fun with it, especially on the song Descending Down. Has a really good thrashy, groovy vibe to it. So I want to play a clip of that for you right now. It has some thrashy elements on this track, but at that particular time, it was a little bit more groovy, but it sounds really good. Those songs in particular have like a really sludgy heaviness to it in terms of like the production. So it makes these songs sound a little bit more on the refreshing and interesting side, I would say. And with most of those songs I mentioned being on the A side of the album, I gotta say that that side of the album seems to be a bit stronger because on the second half of the album, you get a lot of I would say repetitive sounds and styles that they're playing here and kind of do a lot of most of those songs that I mentioned are on the A side of the album, and that most of the songs I just talked about are on the A side of the album, and that side of the album is a little bit stronger and not as repetitive and derivative like the second half of the album. Because I feel like in the back end, the B side of the album, they kind of fall into a rut of repeating themselves a lot with similar riffs and sounds and just doing like death metal songs that sound almost too similar to other bands. So like the first half of the album is a little bit more distinctive, while the second half, not so much. As you progress through this album, the riffs and sometimes the bass can seem a little bit uninteresting. The vocals, they tend to be just kind of doing the same vocal style over and over, so you don't get too much variation. So it can kind of get a little bit boring at times. And then the drums, they're really fast. They're playing really hard, but something about them at times they just feel a little bit too, I guess, standard death metal slash a little bit on the boring side. Like on the song Inevitable War, like everything about it is pretty cool, but it just feels a little lackluster. So I'll play a clip of that for you right now. Like, yeah, it's a fast death metal song, but it kind of almost feels still, it's a faster version of Descending Down a little bit. It has a very similar vibe, but just not as impressive. I will say, though, one thing consistently that sounds good on this album and never really kind of falters or kind of loses its edge is the bass. And I think it's particularly the bass tuning, the way it sounds. It just has that really dirty, grimy feel. And it doesn't really get too boring throughout the album. It's just in your face, dun dun dun, dun, just going really fast. And then at times they slow it down, but it just seems the most interesting thing on this album. But I will say at times the band can sound really good in terms of like the drums and the guitars getting in sync and just creating some really groovy moments on this album. Also, I think that the drums, even though they sound really deep and heavy, at times I feel like they didn't utilize the cymbals as much as they could have. And at the times they did utilize them, they sounded really cool and interesting, but there just wasn't enough cool dynamics play styles with the cymbals. And I think that could have benefited the band if they added some more cymbal usage with this album. The vocals at times can seem a little bit of like a mixed bag because he is lower in the mix, but he has such a strong voice that projects out really well that it kind of works in a weird way at times. So I'm very split. I'm like, well, should it be turned up more, or they lose that like style that he has of being so low, but he's projecting out really far. So it's yeah, it's very half and half. At times it sounds good, half, and the other time it doesn't sound that great. And the pacing on some of the songs can get a little bogged down because they do run for a little too long, I think, particularly the song Deformed. It's a pretty heavy song, but the mix of like his vocals sounding pretty low and it being over 5 minutes long, it can be a bit of a chore to get through. So I'm gonna play a clip of that for you right now so you can get a sense of those vocals I was talking about. It's a pretty standard death metal song, but like I said, the vocals a little low in the mix, I think. They add a lot of things in this album to help create a depressing atmosphere, like sirens and weird sound clips. And on top of that, the production has a very heavy feel to it. So they're able to create a definitely like a dark atmosphere, and it sounds pretty good, I would say, at least in that department. So with this album, I would say Hateforce is a good band that has some really strong and unique moments throughout this album to create that dark atmosphere they're going for. Unfortunately, because a lot of their songs can sound a little repetitive and drag out a little bit, and some production issues, like with some low vocals here and there, it can be a bit of a, not say a chore, but it can be a little difficult to get through because you're kind of almost getting the same song, it feels like, a lot of the time. But with that being said, I would say this album from Hateforce, Systems of Terror, is a good and strong, solid 7 out of 10. Links down below. Comment, like, subscribe. Tell me what you think about this album. Suggest any albums. I'm always down to check out new stuff. And check out this other video and everything. Till next time, guys, I appreciate you coming on by. And see you in the pit.